My name's Tom Coltman. I'm the store manager at Marks & Spencer's. As a company, we employ over 65,000 colleagues, and this is my duvet flip.
Some days you wake up and you have this perfect plan, and that plan needs to be paused for a moment. Has there been anything in your career where you've had to just step up?
Every day in retail, and you do get things that come down and they just don't go to plan.
Tell us that story.
This was my third Christmas. I was in a department of lingerie, kids and beauty. I don't have kids, I don't wear bras, so that was a great opportunity for me to step up.
Tell me a little bit about what management means.
You are that role model.
And what's your advice to anyone who may feel like they can't do something?
We're not all here alone, we can all work together, and how do I lean on them to support me?
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
For me, my name's Tom Coltman. I'm the store manager at Marks & Spencer's. Before sitting down with Jack, I'm feeling very nervous, but also it's a great opportunity to talk about M&S. You have to be an ambassador, be a role model, and I understand that there's a lot of young people that are looking for careers. I'm most excited to talk about the struggles and challenges of retail. I hope people understand that you could be, relentlessly dissatisfied. Every day is a new day, and although you might have had a tough day the day before, how do you wake up, flip your duvet, and move on to the next one? Good morning, let's get started.
So welcome to my duvet flip, Tom. How are we?
Thank you, I'm very excited. It's an interesting opportunity. First podcast that I've done, so hopefully, be the first of many.
Absolutely. And today's all about hearing about your career journey, but also the fantastic work that you do at M&S. But I want to start here. Tell me a little bit about where the working world started for you. What was your first job? What did you learn on that job?
So interestingly, this was my first job. So I started out, left college, was struggling to find retail work. Interestingly, I was looking at other sort of retailers. I wasn't thinking of M&S. It wasn't necessarily my background. Went to the job centre, because I was struggling to find work. And the lady there said, we've got a position here, which is King's Trust, Prince's Trust at the time. Never even heard of it. So I was like, all right, I'll try it. And there I was. So started that. Did a 4-week work experience, which is a great sort of insight into retail work. Had some very tough days, got home and I was almost limping with the long days on your feet all day, which I wasn't used to. Shortly after that, moved on to a sort of temporary contract. And for me, what was quite great opportunity was when I finally got a permanent full-time position. I got permanent quite quickly, but getting that full-time for me was quite an achievement.
And what's the difference between temporary and permanent? Like for anyone who's tuning in, what is in your world, what does that mean?
So a temporary contract would be sort of a fixed term end date. So whether, Christmas working, you might potentially start in the end of November, December, and January end date. So a permanent or regular position would be, fixed permanent position. So you don't have an end date basically. So you're really part of the team and, your hours are fixed, etc.
And how does the programme work?
In terms of Marks & Start, you do get this whole buddy system. So within M&S, we assign buddies for the young people. So they feel really welcome and they can sort of learn without necessarily feeling that responsibility, because it is quite daunting to start with.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you do kind of need that sort of person there to guide you, coach you, and to be there to sort of answer questions and stuff like that. But obviously there is opportunity for them to self-learn and work alone. But, there's always that person they can go to and seek advice.
And what was it about retail? Because you wanted to go into retail. What was it about retail that gave you the reasons why you wanted to get into it?
I think for me, retail, I was always looking into customer service, building confidence, building that resilience, which I later found out I learned more. But I think it was all about that customer experience and, building those sort of relationships with customers and building your confidence through that. I think that is the biggest thing I say for retail is it's a great opportunity for that, especially sort of young people like me. So I started when I was 18, very, very nervous. It was a really exciting time as well. But I think for me, it's that building that confidence, talking to customers, talking to colleagues, and sort of building that rapport with people.
And how did you know that retail was for you? Or did you know it was for you?
I didn't. I left college. I did a lot of sort of IT work, working with systems and stuff like that. So it's a completely different genre for me. And it was, this work experience is a bit of a taster, see if that is for you. For me, it was. Some people won't be, and that's okay. Retail is quite relentless. But I think, I wasn't really clear on what I wanted to do until kind of later on throughout the program. Retail is a very big business, very big, organisation. But I don't think even, for a while, I don't think I knew it was definitely for me. Now it is. I think it'd be foolish for me to say it wasn't. But I don't think there was ever a time where I thought, I don't know if it is for me. But when I started, I was very open-minded.
And then do you think that is really important when you're going into retail, is to be open-minded? And where does that open mind come from? Like, is that something that you had? Is that something that you learned from a buddy? Where did that being open came from?
I think, the opportunity within this role is vast. Doing this program gives you the opportunity to be open-minded. You've got that 4-week work experience. It's an opportunity to know if this is for you or not. I think from my reflections, it was very much just learning new things and seeing if it was for me. I've done quite a lot of different roles in different areas of the store, whether that's menswear, lingerie, kids, beauty, foods, admin, ops. I think having that open mind in that actually you might not fit a certain role, that's okay. But knowing that there's different options available for you.
So I've never worked in retail. Mm-hmm. What would your advice and tips be to me if I were to join retail tomorrow?
Don't stop. I think you will have bad days, and I think it's trying to make it so that you don't have a bad week, and especially sort of store management. I think that's definitely what we have to go by. You will have bad days. You will have, big deliveries, lumpy deliveries, or different times, but I think working in retail, overall is a great opportunity. You will learn great skills, people skills, resilience, timekeeping. But I think the biggest thing for me is all about the willingness to continue. And we have a saying in M&S called relentlessly dissatisfied. And it's all about waking up the next day, very similar to what you say, that duvet flip, and just come back the next day, bigger, better, stronger.
And what have been some of the highlights? Like, what's some of the... I know that in every job there's highlights, there's lowlights, and there's things that happen, but what's some of the reasons that remind you to wake up to what matters and get out of bed? Like, what are some of the things in store that a customer... I'm an M&S customer every week, but like, what's something that I wouldn't see that as a store manager you do see?
Yeah, I think, M&S is such a broad company. We've got so many things that are great. I think for us, stuff like work-life balance, is a great sort of tool for a lot of people, not necessarily just young people, but, people that potentially have kids. Work-life balance is a great thing for M&S. I think, M&S, like I said earlier, is a big family. And quite often people think that retail is, just a small team and you just crack on. But I think, M&S is a bigger, broader family, not necessarily just in store, but, the wider store, support centre. We're all here to help each other. And I think it's such a big organisation. I think that's probably what people don't see. They just see the smaller picture of the store on that day. But there's so much that goes into it. And, especially as a store manager, I'm so thankful for people that work in the support centre, that support me to do my role. So I think, it's all about one big family.
And what is a store manager? Like, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, ultimately, it's about being the one person who is overall responsible for the store. So as a store manager, I'm responsible for my team, but I'm also responsible for the change of M&S and that relentless to move on, and the growth. We've all got plans, targets, so although I'm responsible for one store, I'm also partly responsible for the whole of M&S. And that's a massive opportunity. It is daunting, but partly that relentless to move on. That's basically what an ultimate, idea of what a store manager would be, that overall person who is responsible.
And what's the best part of the job? Is it the people? Because you manage 40 people in the store, right?
Yeah.
What excites you about being a store manager?
I think, every day's different. Although you might have the same working framework, every day is different. I think for me, that's what's quite exciting. You come in today and it's different to yesterday, although you do the same things necessarily. And I think for me, understanding your team, and although, I've got line managers underneath me, but understanding the team quite broadly, you understand what they're going through. I think again, sort of that M&S and sort of being that family, it's quite a good opportunity to learn about people. Make new friends, meet new people. Yeah.
Does it also give you an opportunity to learn about yourself?
Yeah, I think starting from where I was, you know, moving forward, doing different roles, you do have time to, I'm a big reflector, you know, so I'll quite often go home from work and reflect on that day. You do learn a lot about yourself, you know, but also you shouldn't ever think that you can't do something. And I think, you know, I've seen your bits and pieces in terms of you can do so much, but you can only do so much in a certain day, you know, and you have to build goals and, you know, a plan to get there. And very much in store management, that's what it's about, you know. There's a lot of stuff going on, you know, moving, getting bigger and better, but you can only do so much in one day. And that relentlessness has to continue, but just constantly growing every single day.
And is that what you've done in your career from when you first did that work experience to becoming store manager? Because that's like incredible.
Yeah.
Like, is it like take day by day, grow a little bit, learn from everyone around you, do all the hard work, and then that's how you become a store manager?
100%. You know, like I said, you know, when I very first started, I struggled to even just get home, you know, because it was such a long day for me. You know, working in IT, it was very much different. You know, you get home and you'd be exhausted, you know, but I think for me, it's then the next day, you know, constantly progressing, reflecting. And I think, you know, how do we then continue, you know, and be bigger and better the next day?
So I want to talk a little bit about role models. I think everyone in life will have role models. I call them real models. People that are around you, that support you. Who have been the real models and role models in your life to help you at M&S, but just in your career?
I think, you know, when I first started, you know, and we spoke about the buddy system, you know, I very much had a buddy in terms of my line manager. So my line manager at the time was called Katie. You know, and she very much supported me, you know, in terms of that sort of family feel, you know, made me feel at ease, made me feel that there was nothing too much, I couldn't ask for something, you know, she was always there when I needed her. And I think that's really what you want in that sort of role model. You know, and kind of going through my career, I've had many different line managers, you know, many different styles. And I think that's also a great opportunity for me, you know, where I am now, you know, you can kind of reflect on different styles from different role models, and especially with M&S and in any sort of career.
You take the best bits, right?
You go, oh,
I really like how you do that approach, and I really like that. Not too keen on that bit, and then that's how you then kind of tailor your own approach, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, it's great because they've probably done the exact same thing. You know, in M&S, you know, we've got colleagues that have done, you know, sort of 50 years, you know, management roles have done exactly the same. So you think over their careers, they've done the exact same. I think, you know, now that we're an established company and we've all done the same things, I think now every role model, you know, that you go into a store, you speak to the store manager, you speak to the line managers, they've all got their own experiences and they've all done exactly the same thing. They've picked best bits of everyone. I think, you know, and that has definitely helped me, you know, feel that nothing is too much. You can't ask for help, ask for advice, you know, because, like I said, we've all started somewhere. You know, people see me and they're, oh yeah, you know, Tom knows everything.
But you're a role model now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at one point I didn't know anything, you know, so I think it's that progression, and then now you then that role model, you know, and it's great for me, you know, especially sort of talk about Marks to start. You know, we're going through a cohort now, you know, so I can speak to them about my career, you know, what M&S has done for me and Marks and Sparks has done for me. And I think that's, for me, that's great, you know, leading that cohort of the next generation, you know.
And that must also help you flip the duvet in the morning, knowing that there's another cohort coming in or are in the business, and you're just like, I'm up today to help them thrive where you were. How long have you been at M&S?
Since 2018.
Cool. Wow.
So yeah, fair few years now.
7 years.
Yeah.
And then you see other young people come in and other people come in where you can then go, right, now it's my time I had role models around me, it's now my time to be the role model and support them, right?
Exactly. You know, and like part of that you said about the duvet flip, you know, is that next day, you know, and you feel that not necessarily the need, but you're there to, you know, support the team and also be that role model, you know, so be in there, being that presence, being that coach and guide has a massive impact on everyone else.
And some days, and I do this in my career and everything that I get to do, and everyone else in their careers, you wake up and you have this perfect plan, and then you get to work, and that plan needs to be paused for a moment because you have to take an opportunity to step up, right? Has there been anything in your career where you've had to just step up? And tell us that kind of story.
Yeah, so I think what you just said there happens every day in retail. You know, you do make plans, you think, all right, this week I'm going to do this, or next week I'm going to do that, and you do get things that come down and they just don't go to plan. But part of that relentlessness and keeping moving on. I think, on reflection, I think one of the biggest challenges was when I was kind of doing section coordinator. Now, obviously, I was in a challenging role for me anyway, because...
Just pause. What is a section coordinator? Just educate me on.
So it's a role we don't do in M&S now, but we do a role which is very similar, which is called team support manager, sort of like that shift lead supervisor role with maybe in other retailers. We were responsible for, scheduling, running the floor, that floor manager kind of role. So it's not necessarily a role we've got now, but it was a great sort of building block.
Cool.
So kind of during that role, and obviously I was in a department of lingerie, kids and beauty. I don't have kids, I don't wear bras. So, it was a very challenging time for me, but it also was a great opportunity to learn. That sort of Christmas, or my line manager then, so that role model, was absent. And obviously this was my sort of second, third Christmas, so I've done some before, but I've never done it on this department, and that was a great opportunity for me to step up. And quite quickly I was getting walked around by the store manager. They were asking me about what's the sales, what's the opportunities, what we're going to move, what we're not. And I think, that Christmas, although it's quite tough, it definitely gave me some of that resilience and opportunity to grow even further. And I think that potentially, helped me in sort of the next sort of section of my life. That sort of that team manager role, the next sort of step. Having that opportunity to step up and run the department and be the owner of that department instead of that sort of like second down. It was a tough time, but we pushed through.
And did you, before stepping up, because I do it, whether it's going up on stage or is there something new, I'll get this tingly in my belly and a little bit of imposter syndrome, thinking, can I do this? I don't know if I can. Can I do this? And then you do it and you're like, I did it.
Yeah.
Was that the same kind of setup for you before you said, oh, now I'm walking around with the store manager, now I need to step up? It's Christmas time, busy period. What are the emotions, and what's your advice to anyone who may feel like they can't do something?
Every day you might feel that feel nervous or feel that today's going to be tough, and I definitely, during that period, I was definitely, it felt tough, you felt a lot of responsibility. But again, I think, knowing who your, close contacts are, whether it's colleagues, other managers, role models that you can go to, we're not all here alone. We're, like I said, we're a big company, we can all work together. So I think for me, it gave me the opportunity to outreach, other managers, other departments, and how do I lean on them to support me?
And I think that's great, outreach to others and ask them, right, how they deal with things. I think that's quite smart, because you can just keep it in and go, actually, what am I doing? But if you share, problem shared is problem halved, I always say, in the grand scheme of things. Manager. What does that mean? Like, I want to talk a little bit about you stepping into management, and then how did that change your role? What does it mean? Because I think there's a lot of people that like the idea of being a manager, and then a lot of people become managers. Some love it, some don't. Tell me a little bit about what management means, and if anyone who wants to become a store manager, what can they expect, and what should they do now for later down the line?
I think, being a manager, you are that role model, so you have to be really good at understanding your team, understanding strengths, understanding weaknesses, and, being with them, coaching, guiding, supporting. M&S is a very fast moving company, and we do have to transition quite quickly, so your role as a manager is driving that team, but also supporting. So I think, you have to be very good at communication, empathy, and also understanding what the business is expecting, and being that true leader, and driving the team.
And did the empathy and communication grow as you went on the program and throughout your career at M&S, or because I totally agree. I think I always say to anyone, what's your empathy, what's your communications levels, and then I think if you've got empathy and communications, you can go into any career, you can do any job. Obviously you need to learn skills in certain jobs, but tell me a little bit about that. Does the shop floor really help you, and being in store help you build those? And how long did it take you? Because you've been at M&S for 7 years, but I think empathy and communication are so key in today's world, especially with the world of AI.
Yeah, I think, during my career, you do see so many different colleagues. Like I said, we employ over 65,000 colleagues, and every single person has got a different story. Different backgrounds, different levels of education or skills, etc. So you have to be empathetic. Not everyone is the same. M&S will do a policy that is generalized across everyone, and you have to be empathetic and think unique and individual colleague, and how do we support that one colleague to make them be the best they can. We have a thing in M&S about top talent, and how do we make them sort of instead of just sort of meeting the mark, but exceeding expectations and being that top talent colleague. I think that is a role of a manager. Is that is making your team to be the best performing high performance team possible.
And what do you think is your invisible success in your career? Like, what's made you successful that you can't see on your LinkedIn, on a CV? Like, what do you think has made you a good store manager? What's your invisible success to get into it?
I think for me, I always stay calm. I don't stress. I think for me, stress is all the small things that build up. So understanding that, tackling those little bits and pieces, and I think for me, just staying true to myself. I'm very much a calm, understanding person. But I also understand the expectation. So I think for me, on reflection, it'd probably be my calmness, and that's probably the biggest thing I get feedback on.
And why is M&S a good place to work?
I think, similar to what I've said before, partly, the programs that we've got, in all different genres, we've got, support centre, retail, loads of different places to work and loads of different schemes, whether we've got the Marks and Start, you've got your grad programs, etc., or you've got the conventional way of joining, and there's so many different roles, responsibilities that people can go for. And similar to what I said to you before, that work-life balance, as a great advocate from M&S, is how do we support you to do the best job that you can, and some people might think that, retail is, strict hours, but we're a 24/7 company. We've got hours from, 24/7. So yes, I think that's probably the biggest thing from M&S. We can support you in no matter what position you're in now, whether there's something, tools that you need, education you need, training, etc. We can support you.
And personally, why do you keep turning up every day? Why do you every day keep flipping the duvet to turn up?
I think that relentlessness, every single day driving the company, and that relentlessly dissatisfied mentality, although it might sound bad in a way, constantly dissatisfied, it's not about that. It's about, understanding what the goal is, working towards that. Every day is just a progress, as a stepping stone to be better, and potentially things change, and like I said to you earlier, we're a fast-moving company, retail is fast-moving, there's a lot of competition, and you do have to change quite quickly. But I think, for me, is how do we drive the team to understand, have that clarity, but also have the freedom to do the job.
I love that, and I love things that move fast. If anyone wants to work in a fast environment, then M&S is at retail, and M&S is the place, right? Are you ready for my final question?
Of course.
What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
For me, is that drive. Understanding the responsibility of a store manager and being that role model. For me, I always want to improve, not necessarily for me, for my colleagues, the wider community, but also being there for the growth of the company.
Well, Tom, I just want to say thank you for joining us and swapping the store for the studio today.
It's a great opportunity.
And coming in and sharing your story. It's been really good to get to know you, but thank you for just being authentic, honest. And I just love your drive and where you've started from work experience, 7 years as store manager. I think that's just brilliant, so thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
And there we are. How do you find that second half?
Slightly better.
Oh, you did amazing.
Thank you.